Hey class, and welcome to your very first Ed Puzzle for the school year. Again, Ed Puzzle, we're going to be using it for our Monday kind of notes phenomenon, whatever you want to call it, to kind of kickstart us into the week. So what I expect with Ed Puzzles is that not only are you taking notes if you need to write stuff down. Today probably won't as much, but in the future you definitely will want to, as well as going through this video in Ed Puzzle and then answering the questions along the way that have been embedded. So as you can see, today we're going to be talking about hypothesis versus prediction and what is the difference, or is there even a difference between a hypothesis and a prediction? So what does it actually mean? And again, this week, as you saw in the intro video, we're going to be focusing on those scientific practices that will be utilized throughout the school year. So here we go. We're just going to dive right into it. So our learning objectives in this Ed Puzzle is going to be to determine if there is actually a difference between a hypothesis and a prediction. We're also going to be practicing creating a hypothesis and predictions, and then design experiments around a hypothesis or a prediction. So we're going to be taking a look at those two terms and kind of seeing, is there actually a difference, or could they possibly mean the same thing just in different ways? So if we look at it, and I'm going to move myself over, trying to. Oh, there we go. Come on, self. There we go. I'm going to move myself over so you can actually see the definitions and examples. So is there a difference between these two things? So if you look at a hypothesis, and you have probably been told throughout, I don't know, your entire life in science, that hypothesis is an educated guess. And that's really what it is. But it's a proposed explanation of really how something is kind of happening, but it's really the jumping point for you to start into an investigation. So it's really looking at either the data that you have, which may be kind of limited, or it's just previous data that's available to you. You're utilizing that to then say, okay, where can I take this further? What questions do I have? What can I do to investigate this? So a hypothesis, again, you've been told educated guess, but really if you break it down, it's looking at how is something kind of happening, or what are you thinking something is happening with the support of limited data, and then taking that to jump off to further investigation to see what's going on. An example of that, it's typically in the if-then format, and usually you have the independent or dependent variables in there. But an example I have here is, if I study more, then I will get a better grade on my assessment. So it's that if something, then this will happen. So that's a pretty formalized hypothesis. Again, you have that if-then statement. A prediction is a statement about the future based on facts or evidence. So with a prediction, it's more of a statement. Now you still are going through and you want to kind of predict what's happening in the future, but you're still using some kind of fact or some kind of evidence to help you formulate this prediction. A lot of times you can say this with meteorologists. They're making predictions about the weather based on data that they've gotten about weather patterns. So I put that down for an example. It will rain later. If you notice, though, between a prediction and a hypothesis, the prediction is not in a formalized if-then statement. It's just more of a statement. You can kind of think of this as, if you've had me before, our claim, evidence, reasoning. Your prediction is typically your claim. You're saying, this is what I think is going to happen based on the information that I have. So my question to you is there really a difference between a hypothesis and a prediction? Is there truly a difference between the two? For me, there's not really a difference. They're both statements predicting what's going to happen to further your investigation. It just happens, though, that a hypothesis has a standard formalized way of being with the if-then. A prediction just has a generalized statement. But a hypothesis and prediction are trying to do the same thing. They're trying to predict what's happening to then further your investigation to see if you can find out if something more will happen, if you can make changes about something, if you can see if what you predict is really happening, or if there's something else going on. So technically, to me, there is not a difference. It's just a hypothesis tends to be in a more if-then statement format. So now that you know that technically there is not really a difference between a hypothesis and a prediction, we're going to go through and do a little bit of practice. There we go. So we have a little scenario right here. There is a new shower cleaner that claims to get rid of soap scum like no other. You want to know if it will work or not. You decide you will test it by cleaning half of your shower with the new cleaner and the other half with nothing. Yuckies. So what I would like you to do is, and it's up to you, you can either write it in a hypothesis where it's an if-then statement, or you can make a generalized prediction. What is your prediction about what will happen? So design an experiment. So now that you've had a chance to go through and you have made your prediction or you have made your hypothesis, whichever one you prefer, it's your format choice, you're going to practice designing an experiment. Now, the designing the experiment, what we're going to be looking at is we're going to be looking at this thing right here, and this is a cicada molting. So again, I'm going to slide myself over. So I'm going to play this little video of cicada molting. It is time-lapse, so it is faster than what it normally is, because as you can see, it takes about 5 to 6 hours for this actual process to occur. But there it is. There is a little cicada, and cicadas are the bugs in the summer that you hear that are really loud and noisy. But what they do is they molt their exoskeleton. So their exoskeleton is the harder outside. And then once they're done, they unfurl their wings and they have a little bit softer, squishier exoskeleton than what we see. So as you can see, you've got the exoskeleton underneath that is hard, and then now they have their freshly new wings, and you can tell their body looks a little bit softer than what they just molted. So again, this is what we know. We know cicadas molt their exoskeleton. We know that it takes 5 to 6 hours to complete, so this video was definitely time-lapsed. It was sped up by quite a bit. But the question that you now have is, does the amount of light affect the rate at which cicadas molt? So does light cause a difference in the rate in which cicadas molt? So what you're going to do is there's going to be a Google question posted in Google Classroom, and your job is to do that. You are going to design a little experiment, and you're going to include either your prediction or hypothesis and then kind of a general outline of how you would test this. But that's our first little ed puzzle. We are talking about hypothesis versus prediction. Go ahead and go to Google Classroom and answer that Google question, and I will see you all later. Bye.